And welcome back to Gamescom Studio. I'm Max Scoville here with Brian Altano, and we're
Hey,
joined by a very special guest. If you've played a video game in the last decade, you've probably heard his voice, and now he is appearing in some form in The Medium, the brand new horror game from Bloober Team, who also gave us Layers of Fear and Observer. Proud to welcome Troy Baker.
The very special. The very special. I always love when I hear that. It's like the very special. Let's just treat them with kid gloves.
hmm
We can't.
Well, you're in everything, man. You're inescapable. It's constant.
That's what I try to go for. Is like I'm the if nothing else, it's like the here lies the ubiquitous Troy Baker. You may not have liked him, but damn it, he was everywhere.
That's your Marvel Comics like sort of Homeric epithet. You're like
Yes.
the ubiquitous Troy Baker.
The
I think it reached
ubiquitous-
legendary. So I think the next time we'll be like the legendary, ubiquitous, occasionally special Troy Baker.
ubiquitous man. He's
Now-
everywhere.
So speaking of everywhere, you are now showing up in the medium. You are playing a character or a thing or a concept called the Maw, which sounds horrifying. What is it?
It is. We were talking about this, and we prefer after much deliberation and conversation, we were like the entity. It's an entity, which to me just automatic. That word just evokes an instant kind of palpable, tangible creepiness to it, with an air of mystery. So yeah, I get to play the Maw, which we're going to learn more about in this incredibly. I'm trying to find a way, and I'm sure through this conversation we'll kind of be able to nail it down what exactly this experience is. But I mean, it does herald back to some of the earlier games that I used to play on, like, PC, like CD-ROM games or early DVD games that just to this day left an indelible mark on my childhood and resulted in the necessitation of therapy. So the irony, maybe this is my catharsis of just getting through it, is like, I know I'll be the baddie in one of these.
Yeah, no, that rules. I mean, it's there's a little bit of point and click going on, lots of adventure stuff, lots of sort of survival horror feelings and attention here. Were there any sort of like classic horror movies that you brought into your brain when coming to terms with who your character was in this game, the entity?
I mean, there's such a temptation to kind of like pull from how about we have it be a little bit of this and what if it sounds a little bit of that. But honestly, the credit goes to Bloober. This whole thing set out with we were at DICE in the way back when, in the time before, in Vegas, and I got to meet up with some members of the team, and we had kind of emailed back and forth, and it was like, hey, if you're going to be at DICE, we have a project we'd love to talk to you about. And so as is kind of the vibe of that week in Vegas, it's just kind of like, meet me at these chairs or this bar or whatever, and let's grab a drink and let's discuss this. And they walked me through. I was familiar with those guys because of especially the year before the games they had put out, and I was like, this is a strong team that's able to do the caliber of and the pedigree of their studio was worthy of at least a conversation. And they started walking me through the same pitch deck that they had given the publisher to get greenlit. And I instantly was there's smatterings of, like for me, like Silent Hill and kind of the way that this just it immediately evokes this air of creepiness without having to result to the tropes of what horror typically does. I love a good psychological thriller as opposed to just gore and kind of going straight to the gut. And just the pure, like even watching right now on the screen, the concept of the duality of this world and how that works, to me from a pure mechanical standpoint, was enough to bring me in. And then they showed me the character that they wanted me to play. And you guys know we've been around the block enough that I've been fortunate enough to be able to play a lot of different characters, and I've played the brooding hero. I've played the anti-hero. I've played the hands-on hip superhero. I've been able to play a lot of these different characters and find some kind of subtlety and nuance and originality in each of them. But this was like, man, and I even told the guys, I was like, look, I really want to do this. So we need to find a way to make this work. And to their credit, and they had no idea the challenges that would be before them when we had that first conversation. But this just the character alone was, I really wanted to do this because this is something like I've never done before. And there's a fear and a challenge that comes to that, because you you start asking yourself, you're like, can I do this? Is this something that I can do? And so we just together as a team, we buckled down and we jumped on a Zoom call and we're like, let's walk through this. Let's find this character together. And that, to their credit, that was after months and months of them already doing so much groundwork on who the Maw would be in their game.
Now I think we get a brief glimpse of the Maw at the very end of this.
Yeah.
And there's a sort of definitely like a monstrous physicality there. But you've played a lot of humans and you've done full on performance capture, but you've also got, a great vocal range. Is this full PCAP or are you just doing the voice here?
I really got to give credit to everyone who's involved in this because you know me, like when given the chance, I'm going to suit up and we're going to go to work. And then lo and behold, we didn't know that there was going to be this weird thing happen called COVID that was going to bring about this pandemic. And fortunately, we work in an industry of professional problem solvers. They looked at this and was like, all right, this is some bad design. Let's debug this and iterate and come up with a better version. And so they were able to quickly put together a team on their side to be able to go, let's shoot this here. And then Troy, let's come in and let's mask you there. And after I saw what the performance capture artist did, and it's not just, it's an amalgamation, the way that they do this. There's members of the team that are helping to kind of block this out, to kind of get a real sense of this. And so everybody really rolled up their sleeves and got their hands dirty in this. But the guy that did a lot of the mocap for the Maw was on stilts. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if I would have been able to do that. I'm always down to try, but I've learned that there's an artistry when it comes to certain physicality. And I do what I do very, very well. But when it comes to someone who specializes in that, I'm happy to turn the reins over and let someone, whatever's in service of the character, that's what I'm down for.
Can you give us a little sample of what the Maw sounds like?
It's and again, there's so much trust that goes into it because I always, it always sounds different to me in game, no matter who I am. I'm always, because we're on a stage or we're in a booth or whatever. I'm like, yeah. And then I hear back in game, and when it's coming out of the character, there's just this natural flip that happens. But when we sat down to begin, it was like, what is this character? And one of the things that, without delving too much into the story and getting in the weeds of that, one of the things that compelled me to the character just presentationally was the fact that it was very important to the team that this entity exists outside of gender, that there's an easy punt and a temptation to go, well, the bad guy, he does this, or she, and it's just kind of easily put them into one category. But there's something just inherently a bit more supernatural, metaphysical, but to me more interesting when it's taking on this form, but it exists outside the conventions of that form. And so as we began dealing with that, and kind of unpacking that and what that would look like, because for me, there's a quote by Ray Harryhausen who said, the most fearful beast is one that you can imagine in repose. And the fact that this is an entity who is yes, stalking you at times, but also is helping to inform where you are in this world. There's nothing more scary than an enemy that you want to like you, that you want to protect you, that you want to be its friend. And to me, this game kind of explores those notions as well. But that's a big setup for the fact that once we started getting into it, I wanted this thing to feel organic and not be processed. And so we wanted to make sure that we gave it a voice that felt, oh my God, that image right there is so creepy. That felt like it was coming out of a corporeal form, that wasn't just like put through a synthesizer. So a lot of it just came from the way I always like to start, and the way we started with this was to begin with, what does this thing sound like when it's just being there?
Oof. And here we're kind of getting a glimpse of it.
So it just kind of became stuff like that.
That's really creepy.
Yes, that worked. That worked.
Well, damn.
Yeah, man. I love the feeling of this. One of my favorite moments in a game of just something that scared the shit out of me was in Dead Space. And it wasn't when the things were in front of you. It's when you just heard them around you. And to me, there's nothing that helps sell the tone of something better than just experiencing it on one sensory level. And so that was something we took into account when we were doing this. Is like, what is this entity? What is this being? What is this character when it's not just right in front of your face?
Well, goddamn. I'm both excited to meet the mob, but also sort of dreading the experience because it sounds harrowing.
Yes.
The Medium is coming out later this year for Xbox Series X. Troy, thank you so much for coming by and scaring the crap out of us. That was
my pleasure, Max.
That was one of the weirdest things I've heard over Zoom this year. Anyway, we have lots more Gamescom Studio coming up, so stick around.